Hey everyone, and welcome to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and I am joined as always by my co-host, the reasonably aged lady, Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
It's funny how that
I
greeting
don't trust that comment.
that greeting citizens sounded a lot like FU. Like it really did. Like I heard greeting citizens, but it sounded like FU. We are a science fiction movie podcast, and we are going to talk about 12 Monkeys, directed by Terry Gilliam, and that's going to be this episode. We're also going to talk about the short film Jetee, if I'm saying that remotely right, and I never took French, so I have no idea. But the short film that inspired it, we're going to do that at the end as a little bonus. So sometimes we do Mystery Science Theater. Instead, of this time, we're going to talk about that short film, the French short film that inspired 12 Monkeys. So that's what we're going to do. But yeah, we talk about sci-fi movies every week, and we start spoiler free. We'll give you a warning before we get into spoilers somewhere in the middle, and we'll go from there. So Tara, I just seen 12 Monkeys before.
I have.
You
It
have?
was one of my dad's favorite films when it had come out. So we saw it in the theaters and then we watched it a few times when it was on HBO. So yeah, I'd seen it a few times. Although, it had been a while. So a lot of the plot points were familiar, but a lot of the details were very new to me on this viewing.
Yeah, I'd
What
seen
about
it
you?
once before. I'd seen it maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15, something in that range. It was probably in my teens, right? Something in my mid to late teens. I saw 12 Monkeys, and the fact that that's like 10 plus years ago now is making me feel old. But I
Not reasonably aged.
We're both reasonably aged, okay? Um,
hmm
okay, do you know what? Next time, Tara, I'm going to introduce you as a fellow member of my generation. Tara is here. That'll be how I introduce you from now on, okay?
I don't need your charity.
So no, I'd seen it once, and honestly, I didn't remember liking it that much. I remembered being kind of just indifferent to it, and I was curious going back to it now because I'd actually seen Jetee. I'd seen that before. I saw that maybe a few years ago, and we'll get to my thoughts on that when we get to it. But I was curious because I didn't really remember much about it. I remembered like a little bit of like Brad Pitt running around in a mental hospital, and I remembered like a couple of Dutch angles, but that was like I couldn't have told you anything else about the movie if you'd asked me a week ago what it was. I knew there was some time travel element, but that was I couldn't remember it. So yeah, so what is the premise of the film? What's the premise of 12 Monkeys? 12 Monkeys is a film where Bruce Willis plays this character named Cole, who is a prisoner in the future after society has all moved underground because a deadly plague, a virus, has wiped out the vast majority of the population. A few million survive and go underground, but most of the population have been wiped out. And he's a prisoner, and he is tasked with a sort of an offer, like if you do this experiment with us, because every so often there's a quote-unquote volunteer, you'll be maybe pardoned or whatever. And it's basically an experiment to send him back in time to 1996 to try and figure out the source of the virus, because if they can go back and sort of find out where it came from, they can maybe develop some sort of cure. They can't change the past. This is not a film about them trying to change the outbreak from happening. They're merely just trying to figure out where it came from so they can, in present day for them, can immunize themselves so they can go outside and do things.
Yeah, they want a cure.
Because there's a scene early on before this happens where Bruce Willis goes outside and he has to put on like 2 hazmat suits and it's like an astronaut suit with a hazmat suit over the top of it, and it's like, all right, we get it, it's dangerous.
And underneath there's just a condom layer
Yes.
of latex over his entire body.
Yeah, because you see him sitting there and he's got all this latex on, but then he's putting on just the gloves and the socks, as it were, to complete the latex body
It's a body
suit.
condom.
It's a body condom, yeah, that's all it is. I mean, it's not quite, if you've ever seen The Naked Gun, the sex scene in that, it's not quite that body condom, but it's close.
No.
But yeah, so they actually send him back to the wrong time. They send him back to 1990, and they think he's crazy, which is why he ends up in a hospital, and that's where we meet Brad Pitt's character, who's another big star in the film. Although he was just sort of on the rise at the time, I guess. This was just in the early days.
He's so youthful.
And then we also have Madeline Stowe as the other lead, Catherine Raleigh. Catherine Raleigh is her name, and she is this psychiatrist who sort of deals with him in 1990, and then when he does eventually end up in 1996, she ends up sort of being a big part of his story. So that is what I'll say in spoiler free, and we'll keep everything else before spoilers. But Yeah. So Tara, how did you feel watching this again?
Oh, this is a really bizarre film that I didn't remember it being so out there. Like
Hmm.
with the direction. I guess I should have with Terry Gilliam directing it, but I think it's something I didn't pick up when I watched it as a kid in the 90s, but when I watch it now, I'm just like, this style is kind of hit or miss for me. But I do still like it. Like it's still I think it's a pretty solid time travel film. There are some plot holes like you get with any time travel film. I think since we've been watching so many of them, I kind of been seeing 12 Monkeys influence on other films a
Hmm.
little bit. Uh, I really love the performances from Brad Pitt and from um, Bruce Willis a lot. A lot of the side performances are a bit wacky. A lot of them, most of them, maybe even all of them. And there are some scenes where I'm just like, okay, movie.
Oh, we'll talk about the pimp. We'll get to the
Yeah.
pimp and spoilers. Don't you worry. Oh dear.
It's not enough for me to not like the movie. I still actually really like it.
I first of all, we're trying something different recording wise tonight, so you might hear Tara sound a little clearer than she normally does. I also think the delay that's normally there on Skype is gone.
No, it's still there.
It's still there. Okay. I love how I said that and then you just paused for like 3 seconds waiting for me to stop talking.
Well, yeah, I did a little test because I moved my hand and then I waited to see it
Okay.
move on the other. Uh-oh.
Oh, we have a freeze. We have a freeze.
Speaking of testing out new stuff.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh, amazing. Well, that was a problem that happened anyway. So
Yeah.
that's not
This
a
is catch up
negative.
with you.
That's just a consistent problem with what was before. So that's okay. Everything else is still better overall. Uh, so my thoughts on 12 Monkeys. My thoughts on 12 Monkeys. I still don't like it.
Still don't like it.
I don't like it, and I think the movie's about 2 hours 10 minutes long. It felt like 4 hours to me. It felt like a slog.
Really?
I was really struggling
It
through
definitely
this
slows
one.
down in the middle,
Yeah, I
like a
was
lot.
really struggling through this one. You said there you liked Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt's performances. I'm indifferent towards Bruce Willis's performance. I hate Brad Pitt's performance. I hate him in this
Really?
movie. Yeah, I
Do you
can't
think he had
stand
an
him.
Oscar nomination for it?
Did he? I question the Academy's process if he did.
Oh, I like it. I mean, I think it fits the tone of the film.
I don't. Maybe it's just because
I
it's a
don't think
hind.
it's like a real, you know, crazy person.
Oh sure, yeah. Maybe it's because obviously I know Brad Pitt and I didn't see this until later, but like all I can see is Brad Pitt pretending to be wacky. That's all I can see, and it feels weird. It feels like he's just
It is the most unusual role I think he's ever done.
yeah. I don't
But
know if
I
he
think,
suits unusual. He's Brad Pitt. He does not look like an unusual man.
oh, what are you talking about? Sure, he does. He's unusual in Inglorious Bastards.
I can't remember his role in Inglorious. Who's Inglorious
What are you
Bastards?
talking? Lieutenant Aldo Rain.
Oh, of course, of course. I don't know why, but for some reason I wasn't thinking that was Brad Pitt for a second. I don't know why. Yeah. How could I forget? Arrivederci. Yes. Yes.
Arrivederci.
I don't know. I wasn't feeling him. Bruce Willis is okay in it. Like, don't get me wrong. It's because it's not from the like, Bruce Willis post like mid 2000s is very much Bruce Willis doesn't care anymore, and he's just doing this for his alimony checks, right? Because he has to send out a lot of alimony money now, so he's making movies just for the cash. This isn't Bruce Willis like that. I think he's fine in the movie.
Mhm.
I don't think him and the love interest have much chemistry. Is one of my things.
I think, yeah, I think that's missing, but I also think her her character change that happens in like the last third of the film
Mm,
is a bit strange.
it's nonsense.
Uh,
Yes.
it doesn't really work for me either. Like her character does a total shift, and I get like, suddenly going from not believing someone to believing somebody's story because of what she's seen. But like she goes full bonkers for a while.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I think the pacing is an issue. Like it probably isn't, but it felt like we spent an hour in that hospital, and I was just waiting for it to, you know.
Maybe, but I thought the hospital scenes were like the most interesting parts
Oh, I
when
don't
he was stuck
know.
in the mental hospital.
Because it does the there's a lot of Dutch angles. It's like, hey, look how wacky everyone is here. Dutch angles and close ups of Brad Pitt's face, like really
Uh,
intense.
See, I didn't notice that so much. I noticed the wide shots because you could see all the other crazies in the background and they're just being told to act crazy. So it's just like this like dancing going on in the background or people just doing a tick over and over again. And they don't really look crazy. They just look like actors who are trying to think of what crazy looks like.
Yeah, I almost I don't want to say it's offensive because I don't think it is. I think it's ill intentioned, but it almost is borderline like, hey, you couldn't have actually tried to represent like mentally ill people in a way that is doesn't just look a bunch of actors doing silly things around the
Yeah, but
place.
I think it all kind of fits the tone of the movie because you get the tone right away with the scientist
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning. I won't give too much of the plot in this part, but like right away, it was a bit jarring for me at first, but by the end of the film, I got used to it to the point where I kind of preferred to see those types of scenes over the real world stuff because they didn't seem like they fit in the same film.
Yeah, the '90s stuff. Yeah, I definitely like the stuff in the future more. At least at first, I wasn't. I think as it went on, I got a little bit more frustrated with it because I actually did have a problem with those scientist characters and just how like kooky they were.
They're
Like
yeah, they're super kooky.
because there's nothing wrong with the premise of this movie. The premise of this movie is right up my alley. Like, yeah, like going
Mhm.
back in time, trying to figure out like a way to save the future. Like, oh yeah, Terminator. Like, all of it, all my sort of thing. Yeah, the premise of this movie's fine. It's this movie just makes it so quirky and kooky, which isn't necessarily like a huge problem. Like, I can get into certain kooky styles. In fact, even in a French way, because this film reminds me of French, and not just because it's based on a French short story, but Terry Gilliam's always kind of felt to me like kind of an offshoot of like some of that French kind of '90s era, like Jean Pierre Jeunet, like your Delicatessen, your even Alien Resurrection by the same director. Which if you watch that movie, and we'll do it on the show at some point, it has kind of this weird tone versus the other films because it's this French style of like just slightly surreal kind of thing to it.
I'm really not familiar with French directors, so I can't really help you
He,
with that.
he,
But
he did
I have seen the Alien. Uh, which one?
Resurrection.
Resurrection. Yeah, I watched that one recently. I watched all of them
Mm,
recently, and yeah, I could see that.
yeah, his most famous film was Amelie, if you've heard of that.
Which one?
Amelie.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, he did that. He did that. He did that, and then did Alien Resurrection. That was his career.
Oh.
Or maybe he did that after. I can't remember. Um, but yeah,
Desirable
there's a couple of
career
little
path.
bit of that sort of influence in Gilliam's work, but particularly in the future stuff. Like the way the future looks, this kind of quirkiness to it
Yeah, it's
reminds.
with Cyberpunk.
Yeah, it reminds me of that stuff. But I like those movies actually. I actually really like the ones I mentioned there. I don't really remember Amelie that much. I did see that a long time ago, but Delicatessen, which is actually a sci-fi movie, so we could do that at some point. Is definitely got this quirkiness to it, and it's got this kind of grungy but kind of playful like sci-fi visual style to it, and I don't dislike that at all. But I think this movie lacks for me caring about the characters because I don't think I ever cared about Cole, Bruce Willis's character. I don't think I ever really give a shit about what happened to him, and I think that's a big problem.
Um, Maybe it might be kind of tough because you don't really buy his chemistry with the love interest, and he starts off as a convict. So right away you're just like, okay, well, what do you do?
Mm.
I have to like this guy. Like he's clearly not a good person.
Yeah, we never actually get to
And
find out what he did, though, do we? Like, we never get to hear, oh, this
no,
is, what he, yeah.
no, I guess not. But you, I don't know. I was a bit invested into his character, mostly because I liked the puzzle, although I remembered how all the pieces kind of went together because I'd seen this movie a few
Mm.
times. as I was watching it. It's like, oh yeah, and that comes up later. So unfortunately, I couldn't watch it with like a clean slate this time.
It was pretty clean for me, although, funnily enough, like there was a couple of things where I kind of just like he mentions something. There's something on the news at one point, and he mentions how it ends, and of course it's like, okay, well, this is going to be one of the things that proves that he's not completely batshit insane. Like the end of this news story is going to happen at some point,
Mhm.
and it's going to prove to someone that he's not just uh, you know crazy. So like. And obviously, I mean that's obvious anyway. But there was definitely a few points in that in the movie
Yeah,
where
those are kind of tropey.
yeah, there's a few tropes that come up. There's at one point there's like a jarbled phone call in the future, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if we get to hear that phone call get made in the past at some point, that we've not done yet, like kind of thing. There's little things like that kind of sprinkled through it, which isn't necessarily a problem. I think my big problems with this movie is I think the pacing of the movie is off, partly because I feel like Gilliam's direction in this film lacks any kind of momentum. The script, I think, lacks momentum. I feel like every
Mhm.
time we're in like the film breaks down into like sections, right? You've got like the mental hospital section, which is like, I don't know, 30 minutes, something like that, and then you've got a section sort of after that, and then you kind of get your last chunk. And I feel like each section all feel like they're like, it all makes sense in the concept of the movie overall, how much time each one takes. But when you're actually in each section, they feel like they drag on a long time. And
Mhm.
I felt that in every single one. It felt like it was taking a long time to get to the point. And I don't mind movies that are slow paced and take their time, but it wasn't slow paced in a way where I was like intrigued by what was happening. It felt like I was getting the point that it was trying to make, and then it was spending all 10 minutes continuously making that point before it would move on to the next thing. And it felt very frustrating. And I don't know if that was just like, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Like, it's hard to define. But I'm not into the quirkiness of
Do
this
you like
movie.
other Terry Gilliam films?
I remember liking Brazil more, but not loving it the way that everyone praises it. And like it's not one where I watched and went, yeah, that belongs in the Criterion collection. I was like, yeah, it was okay.
Is it a Criterion film?
It was at one point. It may have been out of print and not anymore, but it was. I've not
Hmm.
seen Time Bandits though. I can't comment on Time Bandits, but
I haven't seen. Well, I've seen Brazil, but it's been a long time.
we should.
I wouldn't. I couldn't tell you what it's about.
Yeah, it's a sci-fi movie, so we'll do it at some point. And Time Bandits sounds like a time travel movie, so we'll probably do
Oh,
that.
so we'll probably do it pretty soon, huh?
Yeah, sometime in the next few months.
I've
So,
seen, Fear and Loathing. That was hidden, right?
yes, I've not seen that actually, but yeah.
Oh, I do like that film quite a bit, but it's been a long time. I don't know if it holds up as well.
I
It might have
came.
been a movie of its time,
Yeah, that's one that I've
and
stayed.
where I was in the right time, like the right age to really get into it.
That's one I've stayed away from because I just kind of hate Johnny Depp. So, uh,
Yeah, that came later, right?
my hatred of Johnny Depp.
Yeah, because there was just an oversaturation of Johnny Depp after Pirates of the Caribbean, but this movie came before Pirates of
No,
the Caribbean.
I already disliked him because I hated him in Edward Scissorhands, which was like before that or around that
Oh my
time.
God, you were the worst.
I'm sorry, I don't like Johnny Depp. The only thing I can stomach Johnny Depp in is literally the Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one. He's fine in that. Once he hit his 20s, assuming he was under 20 in that movie, he may not have been. Maybe he was like 21, but I don't like Johnny Depp. I just never have.
You gotta watch Ed Wood. I know you're gonna hate it, but you have to watch it.
Oh my god! I think Tara's Christmas present this year is going to be us reviewing Ed Wood just to finally shut this up.
No, you and Connor need to review it. That would be my Christmas present.
Why does Cara need to be the one reviewing it? You're the one who cares that I
Because
watch
I
it.
want you and Connor to have the discussion, not me. That's a 121 film. And
Are-
then we can review Plan 9 from Outer Space on the Ace.
Oh, what an episode that'll be. Okay, I'll tell Connor that he has to chip in for a Christmas present and then explain that it's Ed Wood. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I don't like Johnny
Well,
Depp.
maybe he'll make the Christmas presents for him.
Sure. But I don't like Johnny Depp. I never have. So Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Because I saw the kind of the spiritual sequel, in theaters because someone wanted to see it.
Oh, I heard it was awful.
It was absolute garbage, and so any possibility of me ever wanting to go back and watch,
Why would you go see the sequel to a movie you hadn't seen?
I didn't know it was a sequel. I didn't know until after I saw it,
Oh,
and I think it's just a spiritual
it's one
sequel.
about like a drunk or something, right?
Yeah, yeah, he's just kind of like going around. Amber Heard was in it, which is weird.
Oh, that's why you went and saw it.
No, 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 I was dragged to it. Someone else wanted to see it because they cared about it. You know, I'm so sorry. I'm not just that much of a horn dog. Amber Heard does not equal me being there.
I don't know. It was the first thing you brought up, so that's why I thought.
It's the only thing I remember. But that's the thing. The only reason why I remember it is because I remember just being uncomfortable because she's like 24 in the movie and he's like pushing 50, and they're like looking at each other and having sex and whatnot, and I'm like, whatever. I just remember it being really dull. Um, but I also find this movie really dull, which I know is going to upset people. I know this movie is loved by people. I know 12 Monkeys has got a fan base. I know people
I
really.
mean, the memory of 12 Monkeys is better than actual watching the film this time, but I still don't think it's bad. I think it's still worth watching.
Well,
And I think
that's fair.
the science fiction part of it and the time travel part of it still works really well in the story.
No, that's fair. I think you like. I'm glad you're just not like in love with it because it makes this easier to have my conversation.
No.
But it's I know people do love this though. I know 12 Monkeys is a movie that gets brought up as a favorite by a lot of people all the time. I see it on the internet, and it's one of those ones where, for the most part, the movies that are brought up in the best of lists, I tend to at least really like them, if not flat out agree that they should be held in that high regard. But this is just one of those ones. Every so often you find one where you don't click with it, and 12 Monkeys just want that for me. I just don't get it. Like, I understand the movie. I'm saying I just don't get the love. I don't get the passion. I don't get the, like, you know.
It's got a very unique style.
Which I can praise it for that, but this is the thing with the unique styles, and I'll always take a unique style over no style at all every single time. But the thing with a unique style is that it'll be very divisive. It'll work. It'll really work for some people, but it will not work at all for other people.
I wish he had leaned in a bit more on the style.
Mm.
I just went like the whole film was more.
Maybe that's the problem.
Either more of that style, more extreme, or more toned down.
Yeah, maybe that's my problem though. Maybe it's not that I dislike the weirder elements. Maybe I just don't think that it leans into them enough. So it clashes with what is a fairly typical otherwise plot of like him with this woman like looking for clues. Like it's like I guess that's the other thing is the actual mystery of the movie. I never found that compelling. I guess, but what is the 12 Monkeys? What is the Army of the 12 Monkeys? I was never like curious or like try to put the pieces together. 'Cause I don't think it presents it in a way where it's not like a good mystery movie where it gives you like pieces and like clues and you try to like piece it together. Everything it gives you is so out of context that you kind of just have to go with what the character's saying as you're going through the movie, kind of thing.
I guess I remember the movie being like a really fun rewatch after you got all the pieces together, and then you can rewatch it and see them all fall into place.
I'd have to watch it again while I still remember it to prove or disprove that, and I don't think I want to. Do you know what? It's funny. A couple of weeks, well, not a couple of weeks ago, last week we recorded the bonus episode, which we've already went up now for Leviathan, and I was poking fun at Tara because she delayed the recording a couple of times and I had to watch the movie twice because it had been like a week and a half, and I felt like no, I have to watch this again so I can talk about it properly. And I was actually
still holding on to it. I see.
No, I'm not.
I said I was sorry.
Amends have been made. I have accepted apologies. We are in a good place. But there was a thought that crossed my mind about halfway through this movie because I checked like how much was left and I couldn't believe it was still an hour, and I went, if she makes me watch this a second time, I am going to kill her.
I think this movie would do well with a rewatch.
Not for me. Not for me.
All right.
I'm good. I've done my time. I've done my time with it, and we're here to talk about it. We could talk about it, and cool.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Was there anything else spoiler free you want to talk about? Cinematography, music.
The score's pretty unusual.
Yeah, music. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I like it, but it's unusual.
It's unusual. It brings in some obviously source music here or there. There's a one point where he hears Wonderful World. Louis Armstrong
Mhm.
playing, and he's all like, "Oh, I like this," and things like that because he's never really heard music before. At least
Pretty cliche.
not like that. That's a bit cliche. I don't really mind that though. That's fine. Um,
Hmm. I sort of wish that Michael Biehn was cast instead of Bruce Willis.
that's fair. That's fair. because of the obvious Terminator parallels, or
Yeah, I think he would bring a lot more. Like when he is excited to breathe the clean air, I believe him.
sure, yeah,
With with uh with Bruce Willis, it's like he forgets that the air is clean until like I don't know, the
halfway through the movie, yeah.
like he's already been there for 20 hours, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, clean air. I like it here."
Yeah, I think I actually think this is a movie that suffers from having stars in its like roles. Like I say, I think Brad Pitt's role would be better with someone else who I didn't
Mm.
know. I think Bruce
No, I like Brad
Willis.
Pitt. I think I'll defend him in this. I think his
It's
choice
fair.
is based on the director, like the tone that he thought the movie was going to be in, and like half the movie was in, but not the scenes from the 90s, which are the ones that he's in.
Yes, that's a fair point. I Yeah, I mean, ultimately, maybe this just boils down to me not jiving with the director, and
Mm.
that's just something I have to accept. That's not something I can critique necessarily. I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best to put my finger on it. I think maybe. I think ultimately it's just missing the emotional connection I need to really care about what's going on, and because of that, it feels like the movie's plodding along, and the quirkiness, which maybe just doesn't go too far or doesn't go far enough to actually feel like the whole movie's quirky, hurts the tone shifts for me and just leaves me feeling a little bit alienated from the whole thing. Uh,
Yeah.
which is when you start browsing things on your
It seems
phone.
like a good practiced student film for his next big one, which I don't know what was. It probably was Fear and Loathing.
No, I think that was before this because this was 1995. Wasn't Fear and Loathing before that?
I don't remember.
Okay, I think it was before that. I
I'm
don't know what he
having
did
camera
after this.
troubles again.
I feel like most of the big Gilliam movies I can name are all before this because Brazil was the 80s and Time Bandits was the 80s, I think.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with his work.
All right, I think we go into spoilers though. We can talk about the plot and dive in. So before we do that though, Tara, why don't you tell everyone at home about the Patreons?
Yeah. If you want to support the channel, you like our reviews, you can check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MalFuzzTV. You can donate as low as $1 per month and you get bonus episodes, which we've already mentioned one of, I think, Leviathan. Yes, that's the one we talked about. And there's a whole back catalog of other ones you can check out, like Trancers, Judge Dredd, the the one with Stallone in it. We haven't
important,
done the good one yet.
important distinction. Yeah, the good one won't be a bonus episode. The good one will get a full episode.
Right, right. So yeah, check it out.
Hmm. I can't believe you didn't say Time Cop. You forgot to list Time Cop.
I still can't believe that's a bonus episode. That should have been a regular one.
Hey, I like Time Cop better than 12 Monkeys, so I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah. I mean, one's clearly a superior film.
Oh, we're making
Worthy of Criterion.
12 Monkeys fans are so angry right now at us.
We should make our submission to Criterion.
Yes, there's Jean-Claude Van Damme Classic Criterion. I think it's deserving of the deluxe treatment, don't you? 2-disc special edition. Get Van Damme in to do
Oh
a
yeah.
commentary track. All right, time for spoilers. And you might have noticed that we look a little bit different if you're watching the video version because it is the next day, it is the next evening. Because despite all of our, like, hey, Discord's so much better because I said that weird, Discord. Discord is so much better because the sound quality is clearer and Tara sounds way better over it. It completely crapped itself right as we were starting the spoilers and it started getting choppy and parts of the audio started cutting out and we couldn't get it to work properly again last night. So here we are.
We're doing it again.
Again, we didn't do too much of this, but we did like 5 minutes maybe tops of the spoilers. So
Right, and it was all choppy, so it
yeah,
wasn't usable.
But luckily, the spoiler section's a neat break, and we can start from here on night 2. Is this the first time I've had to record this one episode over 2 sessions? I think it is.
I think so.
Seems like it is. So, yeah. Where to begin then? Joe, it's funny. I remember being in such like a little bitter mood by the time we got to spoilers because I was complaining how much I disliked the film. But because we've not done that now before this part, I'm actually in quite a good mood.
Oh yeah, little reset for yourself too.
Little reset. So how did this film start again? We're in the future, and Bruce Willis is a prisoner, and he quote unquote volunteers, and is told to go back to 1990, which he does. And I thought it was interesting that we don't actually see his arrival. We cut to a police station, and we see him after he's already been arrested because apparently like time traveling has made him kind of loopy and like crazy and disorientated for at least the first little while, as his mind's adjusting to the fact that he's traveled through time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the scientists say that most people can't handle the trip.
Yeah,
which is a trope we've seen before.
Absolutely, yeah. What's interesting though, because I'm looking forward to talking about Jetee at the end of this, because I think there's some things this movie doesn't bother trying to tackle that short film does. Or at least in greater detail, where it felt like more of an important beat, like this idea here that not everyone can go back, it won't work for everyone. The short film actually kind of like really uses that as a plot point and kind of tries to use it to, But we'll get into that when we can talk about that. But yeah, so we meet the therapist. We meet Stowe's character Catherine, and she takes him to the mental hospital. And that's where we meet Brad Pitt, and we get a lot of crazy dialogue. There's some stuff here that's set up for later, like at one point Bruce Willis is sitting there and he's looking up at the TV and he's like, this planet's kind of a shithole. Like maybe everyone does deserve to be wiped out with a virus, kind of thing. And,
yeah, because he's watching the TV and they're talking about animal cruelty.
Yes, in fact, actually, wasn't that what was the? It was. I think it was later on. There was a car with a license plate, or like was a sticker on the back of the car. It was like vegan mobile or something, or veggie mobile or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And
There's a bunch of them. I didn't catch them all.
Yeah, I laughed at it because obviously I thought of you.
Wait a second. I drive the vegan mobile.
What is it? A big carrot with wheels? Like, what was the vegan mobile?
It looks like the Oscar Mayer wiener dog, but the wiener's made of tofu.
Okay. I'm almost imagining. Did you ever watch Wacky Races as a kid, the cartoon?
No.
No. Well, I'm imagining like vegan wars, and it's like all the cars are all different vegetables. Anyway, so yeah,
the potato would win.
The what would win?
The potato would win. The potato vehicle.
A potato is the best vegetable. I agree, 100%. I have it more than any other vegetable by far. I have it with so many things. It's great. Potatoes are wonderful. So I'm not a big fan of this part of the movie, largely because I feel like it goes on too long where he's in the hospital and there's a lot of like talk. There's a lot of like Brad Pitt with Dutch angles and him sort of like doing like facial tics and like just kind of talking nonsense and running around with his ass out. And like when we actually get to the interesting scenes where Bruce Willis is sitting with there's like a lineup of therapists, right, and doctors who are at a table, and he's trying to prove to them that he's not crazy, but he starts talking about the army of the 12 monkeys and that he's back in time so that he can find out where it came from, so scientists can come back and study it and then figure a cure and blah blah blah. Like, I think what was frustrating about some of the scenes like this for me, and maybe it's because I'm like someone who's watched a lot of science fiction, or maybe it's not, maybe it's just because it's the obvious place it's going to go, is that it's frustrating to me that right away I know he's going to sound crazy, and they're going to think he's even more crazy than he walked, when he first walked in. But we go through the motions of him like trying to like explain each detail as if that's going to help. And I do have to ponder the question. At no point for Cole's character did he consider the possibility that he would have to kind of lie a little bit and not tell everyone why he's in 1996 or 1990 by accident in this case.
Well, he's just trying to gather information because it really doesn't matter that much that he's in the mental hospital. All he wants to know is information about the 12 monkeys.
Sure.
So he's going to ask the people or whoever's around him to, like, have you heard of these guys? Like, clearly they were a big deal at some point.
Do Do you think though that his plan would go better if they didn't just think he was crazy? You know, they'd actually give him answers, kind of thing.
Maybe.
I don't know.
But I could see him like he does get there eventually, right? Like by his third trip or something. He's lying. He's saying, I'm not crazy. I'm I know now that this is what I need to do or how I need to think in order to be in this world.
Yeah,
But in the beginning, like he's on a mission, and I think he doesn't know what his setup is. He doesn't know anything other than he's supposed to gather information at first.
yeah, he tries to escape at one point with the help of Brad Pitt, and gets caught. They put him in like the heavy restraints in like this room. There's just one bed with the restraints, but he disappears and goes back to present day future time. And
After eating a spider.
after eating a spider, which they wanted for you know, a sample so they could do some sciencey things on it.
Well, I mean, you can see it's the same type of spider that he grabbed from the future as well when he went out on the surface. It's the same type of gnarly looking spider.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to eat any spiders, but I definitely, you know, this one looks particularly nasty.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no one wants to eat spiders.
Well, I heard that there is some place in like South America that eats tarantulas. It was a trivia question
Whoa.
this week. They eat like giant tarantulas.
Whoa.
It's disgusting. Yeah.
I hope that's not one of those things where it's a delicacy if you do it when they're alive, because I feel like that's just asking for trouble.
Aw, don't do that to the poor spiders.
The poor spiders. I have nothing against spiders. They don't bother me. Snakes bother me. Spiders, they're fine. Whatever.
I don't like cockroaches, but I also don't like killing them.
That's fair. Never encountered a cockroach myself, but I don't imagine I'd be too fond of them. I mean, it's cockroach.
Cockroaches and I have a history.
Flashback time. I'm doing the hand wave for the flashback. Yeah.
Flashback to my very first apartment where it was just me and 1,000 cockroaches that I could never get rid of. And I kept like buying the at-home kits to like get rid of the cockroaches, and I would like set the bombs off while I went to work. And then I would come back and they would still be there. They lived through everything. And I probably got a healthy dose of like roach poisoning myself, which is why I'm not too bright now.
Probably the exact same cockroach is still there to this day.
Probably.
But they always say that they'll survive a nuclear bomb, so I mean, I don't know why.
Yeah, of course they'll survive a roach bomb.
Yeah, maddening. But yeah, so he goes back to the future, and they're like shocked to learn that he went to 1990, that they'd made a mistake and sent him to the wrong time. And there's kind of almost like a jokey moment where, like, okay, we've got it correct this time. You're going to 1996, the year we wanted you to. You're all ready to go, and they send him through, and he wakes up in the trenches of like World War One.
Yeah,
that was pretty funny. But naked as well.
He immediately gets shot.
He immediately gets shot in the leg. Yeah, I mean, that was a funny cut, and then it cuts to 1996, and Catherine is now like, you know, doing like a book reading. She's at like a museum or something like that, and she's talking about her theories of like, you know, mass delusion and the idea of apocalyptic visions of the future, and talks about, oh, there was, you know, this suspect like in World War One who appeared and was like, everyone thought he was crazy because he said he was from the future, so they tied him to a bed, but he mysteriously disappeared. And presumably at some point in her book also mentioned the guy that she met, Cole, who disappeared from the mental hospital. And this is where we're introduced to another character here who's kind of important in the long run. Let me just scroll down. This is annoyingly, this is in the order of appearance. David Morse's character, Dr. Peters, who's got like a ginger ponytail in this, which is weird because I'm used to this. I've seen this actor in a bunch of stuff. In fact, he just popped up in The Deuce this past week. So
yeah, I think he's mostly known for television because I think my mother used to watch a show with him. Was he in St. Elsewhere?
Oh, he could have been. I don't know. I've never seen it. All I can tell you.
St. Elsewhere face.
All I can tell you about St. Elsewhere is how it ended.
Yeah.
With the snow globe and Tommy Wiseau and the connected universe of everything. But you know, so we're interested to him. So it's like, okay, I mean, he's not like a huge star, but as soon as he pops up, it's like, well, he has to be more notable than just a one scene little cameo.
I don't know if he was really notable at the time. I think Christopher Plummer is way more notable than he is.
Who's also in there later. Yeah, he ends up turning out to be Brad Pitt's father. And do you know what I think is really impressive about this is that I can't believe they went to the effort to CG in Christopher Plummer in 2017 and take out Kevin Spacey, because that's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
This was originally Kevin Spacey. Okay. What? That's a fine joke.
Oh yeah.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I'm sure someone in the audience appreciated that joke. All right. I like the idea of watching every movie Christopher Plummer's in and just sort of like, oh, I wonder what it was like when Kevin Spacey was in this before they changed it.
Do you think he played General Chang from the Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country? Kevin Spacey with an eye patch bolted to his skull.
I think so, yeah. I think that was secretly Christopher.
Quoting Shakespeare in Klingon.
That was Kevin Spacey originally, yeah, and then they had to go back and digitally put in Christopher Plummer. That's Christopher Plummer's job now. He just goes into a room and like green screens all of Kevin Spacey's old movies.
I might watch American Beauty again if they do it.
Yeah, that's the one. Like all the other movies Kevin Spacey's in, like I can still watch. I'm fine, whatever. But American Beauty is just so close to the subject that it's like, nah.
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
Like Kevin Spacey kind of wants to have sex with a teenager.
Where do they come up with these ideas? That would never happen. Oh look, we've changed clothes again. Isn't that funny? For the second time in this review. Also, it's daylight. Hitting Tara right now. She looks so different.
Hey, we sort of have become a time travel podcast, right? So
yeah, we've traveled in time twice apparently in this episode. So Discord kept giving us more issues to the point where it was unusable. We actually tried recording the bit we're about to start, the start of this next part of the plot. We tried recording that like 3 or 4 times yesterday, and having to, by the time we did the last take of it, hoping that it would hold, I was so angry about having to do it again that I just sounded like I hated everything with every word I said. So we made the choice to come back and just finish it on Skype. So there was a slight dip in audio quality on Tara's end. Apologies for that. It's annoying. We tried to avoid it, but clearly, say what you want about Skype, it's a lot more reliable most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time. It's not we've never had an issue, but most of the time it's fine. So I'm just explaining why we're in different clothes at a different time of day again. So also Tara's up far too loud. I'm just going to fix her. She's not said much yet though, so that's okay.
I haven't, no.
Oh no, actually you're not up too loud. I was on Skype before, it's fine. I'm second guessing myself. I'm too nervous because things have went wrong. Anyway.
Pull yourself together, man. You're a host.
Bruce Willis holds Catherine at gunpoint at her car after this talk about her theory about apocalyptic visions of the future. And he forces her by gunpoint, or does he actually have a gun at this point? He does, doesn't he?
Well, he says he does.
He says he does. Yeah, he gets one later from someone else, from the potential rapist. More on that scene when we get there. You're like, yeah, what's that doing in this movie? Yeah, same with the pimp scene. We'll get to that too. So they're in the car, and this part of the movie where they're together and she's been taken against her will, a lot of it is kind of the core story of the movie, where a lot of things are set up here for her to then believe him later, such as like finding the bullet and like kind of like doing a little bit of light operation in the woods, reveals this really old looking bullet that, you know, takes her a little bit off guard. Although now I don't know that much about guns really, but I do. Is there a mistake here where that's not really how it would look if it was pulled out of him? Because that looked more like a shell than it did about like an actual bullet.
It does, but I don't really know it very much about guns. That
said, though, it's a really big one, so I don't know if like the really big like rifle bullets would still look like bullets.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, whereas like a regular bullet, like it tends to look like it's, you know, hit something. You know, and it's you know, it's like whereas the actual thing that you think of the shape of a bullet is actually the shell that ejects when you fire the gun. Anyway, but it's one of those things where I don't really know enough about it to actually point out when it's right and when it's wrong. I just I think about it sometimes when I'm presented with a moment like this. It's something that always bugged me in like Smallville whenever they did like a slow motion scene of a gun firing and the bullet's like coming towards Clark and he's doing his slow motion matrixy like dodge and thing, and the bullets always look like bullets with the casing still on them. I'm like, no, it just fired out the gun. Like this is not how a bullet looks once it's been fired. Anyway, So so we have that, and obviously that later on leads to her like actually when she hears from like the cop who later on examines the bullet that hey that bullet came from like World War I era time. She looks at her like photographs and finds like a photo of Bruce Willis like naked in the background of one of the photos. So
Yeah.
that was the real proof, but that came after the proof of the news story where there's this like ongoing thing in the radio where there's a kid who's trapped down a well, and Bruce Willis is like, oh, I remember this when I was a kid. It's not real. It's a hoax. He's hiding in a barn somewhere. And then again later on after he's disappeared again, sure enough, it comes up saying that he was hiding in a barn, and that's kind of the first time where she's like, because I think the first real moment of doubt is when he disappears again, because he was like right there behind her and he disappears, and then she hears the news story and she's like, whoa, that's weird, and then she hears this about the bullet, looks up the photo, and it's like, shit, I believe him. I believe he's from the future, and he's been time traveling.
Sure, it's convenient that she also was studying World War I and had that photo.
Well, to be fair, I just hit my hand off the desk. To be fair, I think she was only studying it because she'd heard about this guy who disappeared, and that's why she was studying that specific thing. Because it was her book she looked at. It was a photo in her own book that she'd written.
Yeah. And then she had the original photo up in her office that she went to pull down. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Maybe I missed that. Maybe I thought she was studying apocalyptic visions, but I guess she was looking into it because of people who randomly disappear.
No, because remember when she was at the seminar thing talking about it, she said that this guy who disappeared when he was put in restraints, it was because he was claiming he was from the future. So there was like details of the post-apocalyptic future thing in the story that she was studying. It wasn't just he disappeared.
So maybe she got the idea to study people who claim they were from the future after working with Cole in the insane asylum.
Oh yeah, I think so. And I love how you're ending your sentences like when I'm just a couple of seconds away from being back on camera. I was dealing with a cat.
Fun.
There was a feline-related incident over there. I had to deal with it.
Yeah, it's been fun.
But yeah, I think the idea is that she like after Cole disappeared in 1990, that inspired her to look into this as like a specific topic and study. And that led to this research of this guy who disappeared in World War I. And of course, this big moment here, she's like, "Oh shit, it's the same guy." Like Cole went back in time to 19.
Did you think about
17.
that Twilight Zone episode that we watched, where the guy who lives forever was busted because he was in a history book in a photo in World War I think.
The Something Lives of Walter Jameson.
Yeah. That popped into my head when I watched it.
Yeah, it's that kind of moment. Yeah. So no, like I think so. All the plot stuff is fine, and he he demands they go to, I think it's Philadelphia, because that's where he thinks the 12 army of the 12 monkeys are, and now it is 1996. Now he's in the right place, and he goes there. That they're looking around, and it feels like a very dodgy part of the city. There's a lot of homeless people around, and they go into like an abandoned like theater or something like that it is, and of course
they're just playing Hitchcock films.
No, that's later. That's when they're actually in the theater watching something.
Oh, you're right.
This is like a play theater, like a classical theater.
Oh yeah.
And they're up in the balcony because this is when two goons come in and try and attack them so they can rape her, which was a really. This is like an era of filmmaking where they would put in like attempted rapes all the time, like just casually.
Beautiful woman, let's rape her.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, and I get that. Okay, we're dealing with like a seedy underbelly of like the city and stuff, but it just like I don't know. It's almost like, oh, there's a woman in town. Like, women never come to this part of town because we're all crazy and dangerous. So
I wonder if this is where Tasha Yar is from. There's rape gangs everywhere.
That was a quality reference. If you've not been following me and Connor's Star Trek: The Next Generation reviews, that was a quality reference to one of the episodes in season 1 where Star Trek's not exactly a show with like edgy elements like that, but the character casually mentions at one point that she had to escape rape gangs on the regular, and it was like, wait, what? Did a character in Star Trek just say that? What?
I know, rape gangs.
Is this Star Trek or like Zack Snyder's like Star Destroyers?
What's the worst type of gang that we can think of? A rape gang.
Oh.
Thanks, 80s.
I mean, yeah, yeah.
That's a Roddenberry thing.
I mean, you'd have to go pretty depraved to get worse. Like, I'd really have to get inventive
Puppy
to go
killing
worse.
gang.
A what gang?
A puppy killing gang. It's pretty
I,
bad.
I don't think that's worse.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't think that's worse. I think you have to get to some really depraved. Not, I mean, obviously, what we're talking about is depraved, but like, I think you have to get inventively sadistic to go worse than this. Anyway, this is a weird conversation to be having. I'm trying to top weird creations from the 80s. So they, so Cole fights them off though, and takes their gun, which is how he gets a gun, and like I don't know, like is this like their one attempt really to try and make us like Cole, because he's kind of the hero in this scene, despite the fact that he's kind of kidnapped her and he's kind of forcing her to help him.
Well, he does kill them, and she gets pretty upset about it.
I do like his line
And
of
so
dialogue.
even if we're supposed to like him because he rescues her, she doesn't like him because he killed the homeless people.
I do like her reaction to that she's still like, hey, you still killed them. That's kind of, like extreme. But I do like his line here where he says, well, all I see is dead people, which is actually kind of funny in the context of a movie that he's in a few years later. It made me think of a certain film from 1999.
You see dead people too?
But he's like, all I see are dead people. I like that line, this idea that I know, like, these people are all dead because of the apocalypse. Like, they're all dead already to me. I don't care about them. So that was an interesting idea.
And he's not there to try to fix anything. He's just there to fix the future, not the past.
If anything, though,
so they're all going to die no matter what he does.
Yeah, if anything, though, it's almost disappointing the movie didn't play with that more. This idea that he, from a moral perspective, doesn't care about collateral damage, because to him they're all just dead people anyway. So, like, for anything, I would be surprised why he's not even just like, offing people left and right to get what he needs. Like, but he's not. This is the only time in the movie he really does it.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So that may have been interesting if he was willing to just do that a bit more. But yeah.
Well, maybe we are still meant to see him as a good guy, and these guys did try to rape her, so.
Yeah. Again, I complained about this when we talked about Terminator Salvation. I hate the cheap, like, he saved someone from rape, therefore we must like him. It's a really cheap way.
And therefore the woman must fall in love with him.
Which she does, yes. I don't know. Anyway, that's not even the most ridiculous scene though in this section of the movie. They go to a seedy hotel which rents out its rooms by the hour, so it's that kind of hotel. It's for prostitutes and that kind of thing, and it's like $35 an hour, and she's like, an hour? Like, yeah. And
yeah, you see people walking, couples who don't look like they should be together.
And obviously he
Unless
thinks
there's money involved.
Because again, maybe this is them trying to make us think that he's nice. Is he kind of sticks up for her a little bit when he, like, the guy at the counter kind of like implies like that she's a prostitute or whatever, and the guy, and Cole like steps in and goes, hey, she's not that, she's this, and she's my therapist, all right, damn it. And he's like, hey, whatever gets you off. And I'm like, what, you think this is his role playing? The kink? I mean, I suppose it's not that weird. A fantasy, the sexy therapist, sure, whatever. It's weird to
right, but he's really excited at the idea that there's a new girl.
Yeah, like, see, if you're going to roleplay though, would you do it in the lobby in front of the guy? Maybe that makes it kinkier.
I mean, this guy's seen it all anyway, right?
Yeah, that's sure. He's probably seen some depraved shit. He's seen stuff that would give most of his PTSD probably.
Oh yeah, nightmare fuel.
Yeah, room number 7 is the room for the water sports, which he never goes in there. He sends in like a fumigation crew once a week.
But it's a lot of politicians. They call it the political suite. Would you like the Oval Office or?
Oh, do you know what? I love the idea that, like, for most people, being threatened to be pissed on is a threat, right? It's like, oh, what? Don't you dare. But I love the idea that there's that select few where if you threaten them with that, they're like, oh, that would be a shame. Please don't do that.
Oh no, I hate that.
Oh no, how can I survive? Anyway, so they go up to the room and they're just talking about what to do next. and she's trying to help him. And out of nowhere, this guy walks in with this ridiculous hat. He's a pimp, and he's like, "Hey, bitch, this is my territory. How dare you try and sling?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. There's been a misunderstanding." She tries to explain to him calmly that she's not a prostitute and she's not trying to take his territory. And he just punches her in the face. He hooks her. What is it with us watching movies with men punching women in the face? We just did Leviathan for the bonus episode.
Yeah. I mean, Leviathan was kind of a joy to watch.
Yeah, that was a
This one
funny
was just
moment.
like, whoa.
Yeah, this was like. Joe was weird about this though. Is this was not a funny moment? This was like it should
No,
be
it's clearly being played for laughs, but it seems like it's in the wrong world.
Yeah, it's almost like the tone like jars with it, so it doesn't quite work. It feels like you're trying to make light out of like a really serious moment, and the pimp character's really over the top and he's overacting. He's one of these, because I remember at the start of the review, I think we did this like 2 days ago, but I think at the start of the review you said something about how all the side characters were sort of overacting and harder to take seriously, and the pimp is definitely one of those characters.
Oh yeah.
So Bruce Willis fights him and whatever, they get away. And obviously the police are looking for him. In fact, there's a point, not yet actually, it's when he comes back, but so they're looking for like the army of 12 monkeys, and they find these 3 people who it turns out, because they tie them up, and this is maybe one of the first signs as well for Catherine that there's something real happening, because these 3 guys seem to know what he's talking about to some extent, because I say 3 guys, it was like 2 guys and a girl, but they're talking about some of the stuff that he's been kind of talking about, and they bring up Brad Pitt's character, who's kind of the leader, and it's like, oh, the 12 monkeys, like, we need to go and find him. So it leads to them going to the mansion, and this is where Christopher Plummer like lives, and like his son's Brad Pitt, and they capture Cole in the way in. He tries to sneak in, and eventually he just says he's there to see him, and Brad Pitt comes to see him, and Cole's like trying to talk to him, and it turns out Brad Pitt basically says, "Yeah, it was your idea, man. It was your idea to like do this. Like, you said that all these people don't deserve to live, and you said there should be a virus." And it plays with the idea that he might have inadvertently caused the apocalypse because he's inspired this crazy guy to unleash the virus. Because it's basically his dad, who's like a pharmacist, is working on stuff, and a chemist, and him and David Morse are doing tests with these strains and bacteria and whatever. And the idea is that Brad Pitt might be stealing it to release the virus, and that's why it spreads. So if you get the idea from Bruce Willis, it means that inadvertently they caused the apocalypse by sending him back. It's this weird cyclical thing. They're doing almost a Terminator esque idea.
Yeah, and that's a fun reveal, and it's also a pretty decent red herring, I think.
Yeah, because obviously it's revealed later that that's not true. And I do actually, it's funny, I actually like the reveal that this was a red herring more than I like the idea. Like the idea is fine. Like, obviously I like that kind of thing, but I think the sort of fun nature of when you find that all they're actually doing is they're wanting to release all the animals from the zoo. So we get these shots of like giraffes walking down the highway, and like it's kind of a sweet moment.
Yeah. It's just an animal liberation.
Yeah.
That's all the 12 monkeys are.
Yeah.
And they were successful at it. That's why they had those signs saying we did it.
Yeah. So you realize that they're not actually that dangerous. They do kidnap Brad Pitt's father, but it doesn't look like they actually do it. They just have him sort of held captive.
They do set out a lion.
They do. Okay, true. That might have hurt someone. Yes, okay. Reckless, sure, but they're not necessarily like, we want to commit genocide levels of evil.
Yeah.
So, but
I do like the idea of Brad Pitt's character being so insane that to a lot of people they think he's a genius and could follow him. He has a bit of like a Manson vibe going on, I think.
Oh, I hate his ponytail. See, that's part of the movie. He's in that tuxedo and he's got a ponytail. Oh my god, he looks so stupid. I hate it.
I mean, it's another time, but like, I don't like 80s fashion either. Or I know this is 90s, but like,
it's 95. It's literally the middle of the 90s.
Yeah, I know, but like, I'm saying I don't really like old fashion either from those eras.
Some fashion holds up from those eras. Some people look all right.
I mean, suits always look fine.
There's definitely still, even though I think a lot of styles from like the 80s and 70s have dated really badly, there's definitely still some times where an actress will catch my eye, but you know what, that look still works. I'm still into this.
Yeah, maybe.
And to be fair, I think women's fashion and like hairstyles and stuff have changed a lot more dramatically, I think, as a whole than men's. Because men are typically pretty boring. They wear a suit. Different hairstyles have changed a bit.
Yeah, I don't think we'll look fondly on the man bun in the future.
I don't look fondly on it now. Do you?
Sometimes it works, but it has to match the personality.
What, douchebag?
And that could work sometimes. It works on Joseph Seed.
Okay. All right. So don't start acting like a douchebag and getting a man bun just yet. Okay. All right. Men, calm down. It's not like a secret ingredient.
Yeah, I mean, it's fashion. It's your own look. Do what you want to do. Okay, men. Just don't try to cover up bald. That's always a mistake.
I feel attacked right now.
Are you trying to cover up your bald?
No, but like
You're
well,
not really bald.
well, it's it's got a shape to it. There's a hairline. That's not where it used to be. Well, this is the thing though. My hair, like I wouldn't describe my hair as fashion though. My hair is just what it is, and it gets cut, and then that's it. There's no style. There's no nothing happening to it. I don't do anything to it to make it look different than what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Arguably, I can't because there's, it's just because of the way it is. But like I don't know, fashion is not something I think about when it comes to. Well, even getting dressed, I just put on what's comfortable and go for it.
But you think about it in movies.
I think about it in movies because characters are supposed to be dressed in certain ways.
This had to be like around the time of Interview with the Vampire. Also, he had long hair for that.
I think it was a couple of years before this. I think wasn't that the movie that kind of made him like a star? Because he was in Thelma and Louise at the start of the 90s, but he only had like a small role in that. I think it was Interview with a Vampire that kind of shot him into, superstar Brad Pitt kind of thing.
Maybe.
Yeah,
they probably were before this.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually think I like a lot of Brad Pitt stuff from like his. I mean, I like Seven obviously because Seven's great, but I think I actually like him working with like Tarantino and stuff more. I think I like confident middle-aged Brad Pitt a bit more than I do young, hot Brad Pitt. If that makes sense.
I mean, yeah, I liked. I watched Mr. and Mrs. Smith recently. It was on TV, and I just kind of started watching it. I'm like, this is really good. It's a really fun movie, and
I saw it once. I don't think I like Angelina Jolie, so I don't think I like that movie that much because of that. But
I
had no problem with him for sure.
You really don't like her?
I don't like hate her, but like I can't think of anything I've seen her in where I've like I like her in this.
Really? Oh.
Well, what options do I have?
I think she's a movie star.
The Tomb Raider
whenever
movies?
she's in something, I'm like, I like her. I'll go see it.
I don't really care about Maleficent. It's not my sort of thing.
Oh, I never saw it.
Yeah. Well, what else is she in? Like, name a couple of Angelina Jolie movies.
I liked Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
That are the ones we already mentioned.
What was the Girl Interrupted?
Oh, I never saw that.
Yeah. I think she might have been nominated for an Oscar for that one. Maybe. Even won. Did she win? She might have won.
Maybe she did. Maybe she won.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really hold anything. It's not like because there's definitely actors who actively annoy me, and I think we maybe earlier on in this. No, we didn't.
The actors, or is it the tabloids?
No, it's the actors. Like, because like this wasn't on a show, but we were having a conversation about Johnny Depp recently, and I've always just disliked Johnny Depp. There's something about Johnny Depp that just pisses me off, and I don't like him. And yes, that includes stuff like Edward Scissorhands. I hate that movie. I hate it. I despise that movie.
I'm aware.
And yeah, I don't think there's such a thing as a good Johnny Depp led movie. I say led because I like Nightmare on Elm Street, so I'm being specific with my wording here. No comment.
I suspect that will change one day.
Yeah, Tara's working very hard behind the scenes to get me to watch something. I'm not going down with that fight. I'll say that much. I have another cat related thing to go let the cat out. Why don't you talk about how after Bruce Willis looks like he's trying to kill Brad Pitt, just runs away, and the scene with him and Catherine in the forest after.
Oh, yeah, I have to really remember the scene, but I think they get to a river and he admits to her he didn't really have a gun the whole time. Oh, no.
No, because he
He
dropped
locked
it.
her in a trunk
Yes, because he dropped it on the way in
of a
because he was
car.
because
So,
when he was rolling under like a car to get into the mansion, he just it was just conveniently dropped out of his pocket onto the ground.
that's right. Okay.
But yeah, she's in a trunk and
So yeah, so he lets her out of the trunk, and
she's
this
not
is right
pleased.
after she's like sort of fallen in love with him too.
Yeah, can I just mention here, like I tip to all the guys out there trying to court ladies is that because I've made this mistake myself in the past is that women don't typically like being in a trunk, so don't do that.
There was a really good joke. I don't remember who said it or what comedian said it about whether or not you should have a wife or a dog, because if you put both your wife and your dog in the trunk, which one's going to be happy to see you when you open the trunk back up? Why he's a dog person.
That's yeah, oh, solid joke. So
Stop.
the police are showing up though, but he disappears because he's basically at this point starting to think that maybe he is crazy, that maybe she is right and this is a delusion, and he's actually like, I love the air, I love the sun, I love throwing running water, and he's like in the little river, and I say a little because it is literally like a really shallow like
It's like
running
a creek.
yeah,
Yeah, like,
it's a little yeah. Because it's up to his like shin maybe. Like it's not it's not like a tall tall. You don't call it a tall river, a deep river.
right.
Tall river. So no, he disappears because she turns around. He basically Batman's out the scene, and what I like about it is we don't see him disappearing either, but we do see like some ripples in the water as if he was just there. It's like a nice little touch just to make it feel
Right. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, he just literally vanished.
yeah. And
Mid jump.
and he's back in the future, and like, oh, you did such a good job. And it's again, I hate all these close-ups of these wacky scientists. Like, you did such a good job. It was very good. You get your pardon. It plays like one of those like weird dream sequences where everyone's like really like in your face all the time. Like it really has that kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're not real. You're not real. I'm crazy. You're not real. So he's starting to believe that maybe he started to become accustomed to 1996 and like the world before the apocalypse, and he wants to be there now. And for me, I think this is why this movie ultimately fails for me, is that I think the emotional tether of him starting to love the world and love Catherine in the 90s before the apocalypse never feels real enough to me for me to like buy into it and care about the fact that he really wants to be there now. It just kind of feels like the obvious thing to do
It
next.
should though, right? Because
It should.
because to go from a place where you have to live underground to all of a sudden having birds and trees and sunshine.
Do you know what the problem is though?
Like,
Is that
it shouldn't take very much to want to be like, I think I would stay here,
it's
even if it means death in like 6 years or whatever.
1 year is technically in the
1 year by that time, yeah.
but the thing is though is that he takes so long in the movie before he ever actually acknowledges that he cares about the world in the way it is like now in 1996. Like he never like
He's mentioned it. He mentioned the air being clean and how much he liked breathing it.
but that was really late on though. That was like after the bullet got taken out, I think, or even later. So like it's a long time in the movie before he even like indicates that he's actually happy about his surroundings, that he's enjoying anything.
Right. And it would have been nice to have seen more of it, even if he didn't have dialogue about it, just like breathing in slowly or listening to, the sound of the insects and the birds and stuff.
Tasting some chocolate or something, just stuff that he wouldn't have in the future. Just all these little things that like, hey, this world ain't so bad. Maybe I want to stay here.
Yeah.
And I found
we never see him eat anything.
Except a spider.
Except for a spider.
He does eat one thing.
I thought he ate the spider because that's what he thinks food is.
Nah, they explain it. They explain when he gets back. I'm sure we mentioned this earlier. This is the problem with doing like half of a review 2 days ago, is that I've forgotten everything we said in the first the first chunk. Again, really haphazard review this week. It'll be back to normal next week, we promise.
Yep.
But so from here he wants to go back, and he kind of he begs them to go back because they're going to send someone else to like deal with the virus, because now that they've found the 12 monkeys and they think it's like Brad Pitt that's behind it. And he's like, hey, I'm the most qualified. No one else has been back that long like I have. No one survived as long as I have in the past and knows people there. And like, that's true. He is the most qualified. And again, I'm doing that stupid voice because I hate how they speak. And I hate the quirkiness of all this shit. But they do send him back. But there is a portion of this film here where it's Catherine, like, running around on her own, like, trying to prove and, like, find these people again. She spray paints the message on the window. Which is something that like he's kind of seen evidence of in the future, and he does eventually appear. He appears kind of because she goes to like another one of like, the upper doctors that we met earlier on back in the hospital phase of the film, and she's like, hey, like how could he have known this? How could he have known this about the barn and like the photo and whatever? Like, like what if the world really is about to hit an apocalypse in like next year? And they're like, how could he know that? No, you're sounding ludicrous, Catherine. He's just kind of like poo-pooing her. But he does appear on the street. He appears on the street corner, like right behind her after she spray painted this message. And he's back, and he's convinced the scientist to let him go back because he's the right person for the mission. But as soon as he gets here, he wants to like say, no, you're right, I was crazy. This was all fake. In fact, when she says, hey, the police will be looking for you, he's like, oh, great. And he holds up his head and goes, hey, I'm right here. And she has to like pull down his hands. I did genuinely laugh at that. That was a joke that made me laugh. I'm going to go let a cat out.
I'm glad you had some comedy. Well, also the last time we saw them together at the little creek, she was waving down the guards and saying, we're here, and I mean he was just jumping around in a creek waiting to disappear.
Like a kid, yeah.
But it's kind of like a flip of what the scene we saw, the last we saw them together.
Yeah, it makes it funnier. It makes it funnier that there's that little callback to it as well. So no, that's fine. And like from here again, they kind of go on the run, and they're kind of looking into things, but partly they just want to escape at this point. And he's not. He's still kind of convinced he's crazy. It's not until because she has the idea like, hey, remember? Because earlier in the film, in the hospital portion, he wanted to call this phone number, right? He wanted to call this phone number that would just be an answering machine, but the idea is that he could leave a message, and this would be an answering machine that the in the future they have access to, so they would be able to listen to this old message. So it turns out in 1996, because he calls it in 1990, and it's like just some random woman's phone number. Like she's got some kids and she's trying to make dinner, and it's like, what are you talking about? Who is this? And he realizes, oh wait, no, the number will be something else in 1996. It's this number that it is now will be disconnected and it'll be used elsewhere in 96. And Catherine tries it herself and phones this number, and the way it starts to prove to him that he's not crazy and that this is all real is that she says the message she left, and then he's able to finish it because he heard it already in the future.
Right.
And this is where like, oh crap, this is real. There's going to actually be, the apocalypse is happening.
That's when we realized that his whole mission was for nothing.
Yeah, because it seems like everything that was happening always happened. It's just that kind of rule of time travel where everything was always going to happen. And it does play out that way, with the exception of maybe the very ending that kind of hints that maybe it can still be stopped. But it's very ambiguous. It kind of just leaves it open to interpretation. But I did like the small moment here where he turns around and there's like a stuffed bear in the window, because it harkens back to the opening where he's out in the hazmat suit and there's an actual bear. Because all the animals still survive. It's only humans that have to go underground. The animals get to thrive. But so they end up going to see Vertigo in a movie theater, and they're really bonding by this point, and this gives them the idea to dress up and it's at this point I think, because obviously throughout the film, and I don't know how much we've mentioned this actually up until now. I think I mentioned it maybe at the start, but one of the key things in the film is that from the start, the opening scene even is this scene in an airport, and it's like a flashback to when Cole was a child and he saw someone running and be shot. Someone was killed in front of him as a kid, and we see like more glimpses of this dream later on, and at one point Bruce Willis even says like, oh, there's like a woman here, I think it was you were there in that dream, but you look different, you had different hair. So obviously at this point, when they get the inspiration from Vertigo, and the Vertigo music actually plays as they're like in these disguises for the first time, like she's got this blonde wig on and he's now got this wig on and a mustache, and it's like I mean, I knew it was going anyway because A, I'd seen it before and I've seen Jetee, which we're going to talk about after this, but like, okay, I think this is the point where it should click for most people that he probably saw himself die. Like, that's what this is building up to. It's building up to the man he saw killed as a kid that's been ingrained in his head.
Once
the whole,
we see her in
life.
the blonde wig, and we seen her in the dream with the blonde wig, with blonde hair, we're like, oh, okay, yeah. So you've seen yourself die.
It's inevitable. That is the crushing sound of inevitability. What's that? Is that Matrix? That's the Matrix I just quoted.
We should watch that one.
It's a sci-fi movie. Hey, they're doing a new one. We'll have a reason to do all three come like 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, I guess. All right.
Is that you?
Looking forward to the first one.
Is that you been disappointed we have to wait, or been disappointed that we have to watch Reloaded and Revolutions?
Yeah. The latter.
I remember, even though I was at an age where I convinced myself to like everything when I saw Reloaded, I remember just sitting there during the rave sequence going, what is this?
This is weird.
Why am I watching this? What's this rave scene?
The highway scene is really good. The chase.
The highway scene, I remember. I think some of the effects. I bet you the effects have dated when we watch it though. I bet the CG does not hold up, but it was fun at the time.
Maybe, but they did build like a highway to film that scene.
Yeah, but because I remember even watching just a few years later, I remember the scene with all the Agent Smiths fighting Neo. I remember that looking really bad, even just a couple of years later.
Wasn't that the third one? Maybe
that's the second one. Yeah, but they all look like PS2 characters. It's really quite something.
It's hard to top a masterpiece, you know.
Hey, they made. I don't know if I'm going to say masterpiece, but it does get close. The Matrix is a really good movie. It holds up. Sequels.
We shall find out anyway.
We shall find out, yes, when we get to them. So many good sci-fi still to do, and we still have to talk about 12 Monkeys. And I know I'm upsetting people when I say that, because some people love this movie, and I get that you love this movie. I wish I could feel that connection. I really do.
I like this movie.
You like it? I don't think you love it though, right?
No, but if you had asked me before we reviewed 12 Monkeys if I loved it, I would have said, yeah, I love 12 Monkeys. It's great.
But it's went down.
Because the memory of the film was a lot better than the rewatch. Itself.
Yeah, I get that. So yeah, sure enough, they end up at an airport, and there's a lot of little things here where like, someone contacts him from the future, because he makes like a phone from a payphone to the answering machine saying, hey, forget about the Army of the 12 Monkeys, it's not them. This is after we have that scene where they're in the cab and they see the giraffes and they hear on the radio that this is what they've actually done. And they're like, oh wait, forget the 12 Monkeys, it's not them. That was a false lead. Don't do that. And this guy from the future shows up and gives him a gun and says, you have to kill the guy who's going to do it. Because there's a little scene where we see David Morse at the terminal. He's like buying his plane ticket or whatever, and we get like a list of destinations, and it matches a list of when the virus appeared, and it's like, oh shit, it's him. It's ginger ponytail David Morse is actually the guy who releases the virus. And what I thought was funny actually is a scene where he's going through security. And like the airport security like say, hey, we have to look at this case that you've got vials in, like, because obviously, I mean, I don't know how strict it was in 1996, but liquids and things like that are a no-go. You can't take liquids into the airport, like, past security. That's just a strict no-go now.
No, I think that was post 9/11.
Is that just supposed to be anyway? Because they pull out these little these vials with test tubes inside it, and like David Moore's like, hey, we can open it if you want. He's like, oh, that won't be necessary, and I'm like, anything could be in there. Like, because he's like, it's odorless, and he's like, here, guards, smell it, like, kind of thing. So this guy's at least dead. I mean, that's
right. We know the virus has been at least there.
At least there. But of course,
there's no stopping it now.
He's on the run, and like Cole doesn't want to get involved, but he sees him running, and he has to try and stop him. So he pulls out his gun and runs through security, and in slow motion, and you know what's happening. You're hoping he can get the shot off before he gets shot himself, but police shoot him. He goes down, and we get a scene where David Morse is on the plane, and the woman next to him is one of the scientists from the future, the sort of quirky one, who just makes some small talk with him, just implying that maybe the scientist can like still save it. Like maybe they're still going to stop him from doing what he's doing.
She says that she deals in insurance, which I thought was a key line. Because that means that she's there to... I was either expecting the plane to explode or that, and if it didn't explode, then I think she's just there to get the virus to take it to the future,
Sure, yeah.
not do anything else
But not
in the
stop it.
current
Yeah,
timeline.
just take it to the future. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, you're right. It's probably just take it to the future rather than a hopeful thing where maybe she could stop it. But, um, which is
It's already been unleashed at least one city in New York, so or Philly, wherever they are.
yeah, which is a really sad ending when you think about it. Like, no, the apocalypse is still going to happen, and our main character's been killed, and the little boy version sees him killed, and the final shot of the movie is just the little boy version of Cole looking up at the plane in wonderment, and like it fades to black. Like, that's the end of the movie. It's a really
Yep.
sad story, in a lot of ways, and I wish I liked
Yeah.
it more because all of the ideas I like. I love the
Yeah, I
idea of
love the story. I'll say that. I think the
yeah.
story's great. I like the puzzle a lot. I like the red herring. I
I
know you don't like Brad Pitt, but I think he's great in it.
I don't like Brad Pitt very much in it, but I think my main problem with it is one, I never really care about Cole, and it doesn't really focus him emotionally to make me care because I feel like even the idea that he's like, obsessed with this image of something he saw as a kid should be played up more, right? A little bit to give us the side of it, and I also
Yeah,
think
he might have been miscast.
yeah.
This could have been the beginning of Bruce Willis's I don't care about movies anymore. But I mean, he does sort of give it almost his all. I mean, he shows his ass like twice.
He's been in good stuff after this, like, for at least a few times. But in fact,
Yeah.
my favorite Bruce Willis movie hadn't happened yet. So I mean, he's not completely uncaring yet. But he, yeah. So there's that. But then I also think the actual plot progression in like each part of the movie is kind of dull. Like I don't like how it goes about actually getting to the information. Even though I like the plot itself, I like the ideas in the plot. I just think the execution is kind of lacking. And for me, it made the movie very plodding from a pacing point of view. And it felt, it was 2 hours, 10 minutes, which is not a short movie, but it felt even longer. It felt like, I felt like I was wading through it. And like, I got to the point where I'm like, I'm looking forward to this being over so I can just be done. Which is not what I feel when I'm watching a movie. That's a bad sign. If I'm feeling that, then something's just not clicking for me. Even though on paper there's a
It
lot
does feel long.
that I like about it.
Yeah, you're right.
So
It does feel like a long film, but
I wish I liked it more. I really do.
it's not an I don't think it's a bad watch. I mean, there are some things that you kind of roll your eyes at and you can't help but do it. And I do think that if it was going to go for that Terry Gilliam style of being kind of out there and over the top, and I want to say comic booky, but more in like a Schumacher comic booky way, then I wish it totally leaned into it, or just stayed away from it altogether. But because he had to go for this cyberpunk Frenchy style future, that he only did it for the future scenes and not for the present scenes. I think it's a bit jarring.
I agree.
And yeah, but I don't think it's a bad watch.
Well, I want to be
think it's
clear. I
still
don't.
a decent science fiction film.
Yeah, I want to make it clear. I don't hate it. Like I don't have like contempt for it. It's just.
I know what you're doing though, because you have like everyone says this is on my list of must-see sci-fi films, and you go,
Yeah.
should the list of must-see sci-fi movies be only great films?
Yes.
And I don't know, that might not be true. So
I don't think it's must see. I guess I would disagree. I would disagree that it's a must see sci-fi movie. But obviously, I know a lot of people disagree with that. A lot of people do think it's a must see sci-fi movie.
yeah, I think it's a movie of its time too. I mean, we used to get a lot of movies about deadly viruses in the 90s. Sorry, ambulance. Speaking of
deadly viruses. I don't want to be too harsh because I do think there's a lot of good ideas in there. There's just something about the execution and the main characters that just don't quite work for me, which is a shame. And I think
yeah,
I
think I brought it up already, but there's like a switch that happens with Madeline Stowe's character where she goes from like being super reasonable intellectual to just batshit crazy.
Yeah, she just believes it 100% and is like in love with them, and they have
and becomes a crazy woman. Like she's like bouncing off the walls like Brad Pitt was in the beginning of the film.
So
it's just bizarre to me.
So this is actually partly why I really want to do Les Jetee with this, or La Jetee. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of the short French film.
Is it L.A.?
Yeah.
La
Jetee, yes,
La Jetée.
which I believe translates as the pier, which makes sense given the film. So I really wanted to do this with it because I'd seen it and I knew it was like the inspiration, if not the outright basis for 12 Monkeys. So obviously I think it'd be interesting to compare it, but also because I love it. Right,
Mm.
between the two of them, I think La Jetée is the much better film, and it's only 26 minutes. It's told all in still images with French narration, and here's what I think this movie has. I'm not going to say 12 Monkeys doesn't have atmosphere because it does. I just don't necessarily like it because it's kind of weird and quirky. But La Jetée has like so much atmosphere. It's so wonderful, like the feeling it gives you. And it's not a virus that breaks out. In La Jetée, it's a World War III breaks out. It's like people nuking each
Mm-hmm.
other that makes the Earth uninhabitable. And they sell this idea of time travel. And this is where I think earlier on I was saying how the process of the time travel, this idea that not everyone can do it and it might make you mad. Like, they really sell the idea in this short film that they've tried this on multiple people, and it's just like this thing where they put them like this like thing over their eyes, and they're trying, and
Yeah.
they have
It's
to
like
like
a sleeping mask.
yeah, but they have to like try for weeks before they'll even like send someone back for once. It's like they really sell this idea, and this is why it works at the movies in still images, because the whole idea of their time travel is that you have to focus on an image of your past and just focus on it, and it'll eventually help you guide your way back. So it's told in still images because it gives the impression that that's kind of what the experience is like for him as he's traveling back through time. So our main character's just, I don't even know if he's got a name. I think he's just the man. Like he's just the main character, and
Mm-hmm.
he's got this image in his, because the movie starts. He's like, I've got this image in my head of a pier, and like a naval base, and it's just this woman, her hair's blowing in the wind, and it's this woman that he's been like thinking of since he was a kid. But he also saw a man die that day, and this is where the inspiration for 12 Monkeys really becomes apparent, because he saw a man die that
Right.
day, and and I love the atmosphere of like all the tunnels that they're living in the future, and we hear about.
There's some really great faces in the
Oh
in
yeah.
the pictures that are used. Like there's people who are so sallow looking, like when they have the light on top of them in the dark cave, that they just look like a skull.
Yeah, and then
Like
all
they look
this
like death.
the scientists who are working on them as well. Like, I love them compared to 12 Monkeys because they feel like,
They have like the cyberpunk goggles.
yeah, but they also feel kind of like menacing, and like can't quite trust them, but they're not quirky in the same way that the 12 Monkeys scientists are quirky. And it feels like it's really difficult to do this time travel thing, that they're really trying it, and he's thinking of one image and he kind of like gets to one place briefly, and he comes back and it's like, okay, success, we're going to keep working. And eventually they send him back, and he actually comes back and forth multiple times, and he meets this woman that I love the idea that he only goes back to this woman because he's thinking of that woman. So in the time space continuum, it kind of links him to her, so he keeps going back to her, and they kind of form a relationship. And there's like a whole scene where they're going around a museum looking at stuffed animals and stuff, and they're like they form this bond, this romantic bond. And he's like, and the thing that the movie 12 Monkeys doesn't do for me that this movie does is that it really sells this idea that every time he goes back, he becomes more addicted to wanting to be back there with her, and he doesn't want to
Yeah.
be in the future anymore.
I mean, the Philadelphia experiment kind of failed at this also.
That's true. Yeah, right. Yeah. But it sold me in 26 minutes. It sold me that idea. And I think it's interesting
Yeah, I
that,
kind of fall in love with the woman too, like just watching her because you're watching it from his perspective. It kinda
and
just
she's so
like, wow.
angelic, and like
Mhm.
it's all in black and white, and it's very atmospheric, and like eventually like he he has to kind of trick his way back as well, the one final time. He basically, because the one big weird science fiction thing that happens towards the end that doesn't happen in 12 Monkeys is that the scientists are like, okay, you're done, you finished your mission, that was the last time. And you feel quite bad for him, because he's like, wait, was that the last time I'm ever going to get to see her? Because he's fallen in love with her, and he's I'm not going to get to see her again, like what? And like he is, the last time he goes on a mission it actually ends up in the future. Like, hey, so that was the last time you went to the past, we're going to try and send you to the future. And he goes to this weird, mysterious, all-black future where there's like 4 people. It's almost like Bohemian Rhapsody, the music video, or like something like that. It's like just 4 heads, like in blackness, and they've got like a thing in their forehead, like a little device, and they're like, "Oh, welcome to the future," blah blah blah. And he's like, "Oh, how did you survive? So we know how to survive." Because that's why they're doing this. They want to figure out how they can be habitable again in the world, and go forward and have enough food and things like that. And like, oh, we can't tell you. We can't tell you. You have to figure that out on your own. And it feels like a really cold, like, F you, even though clearly we survive in some capacity because there's people here and they've evolved because they're
Yeah.
all weird and I don't know if they're telepathic or whatever. But after this meeting happens, they contact him and like, hey, you've traveled through time enough. You're basically one of us because we can also travel through time. And we'd like to bring you forward in time because now you're like us. You should live in the future with us. And he says, no, can you send me to the past? I want to be with her. So that's his request. And they grant him this request. That's actually how he gets back in time again. But he's on the pier. He's at this pier. And he sees her at the end, the hair blowing in the wind. And he runs up to her. And it's as he's running up to her, as he's looking at it, it's all still images. He looks over, and one of the men on the pier has the goggles. It's one of the scientists from his time. And it's like, no, you can't escape your destiny. Like, you thought you could get away from us because you knew we were just probably going to kill you after you were completed all the experiments. You don't get to be away from us. And it's like, no, they kill him, and he dies on the pier. And the movie just fades to black. That's it. It's a really somber ending. And I think
that's my experience with French movies also.
I mean, did you like this? Did you like the Jetee?
Yeah, I did.
I think it's way better than 12 minutes. I think in 26 minutes, it actually tells me a more compelling story that actually has more depth to it. There's more mythology to me in this, and all the stuff that it sets up. I was super into
Well, there's
this.
no way for it to screw up also because nobody speaks.
That's true. Yeah, okay. I mean, it does have that, but at the very least, though, like,
this is just storytelling, with pictures.
Yeah. But I mean, at the very least, it does fit thematically with how they describe the time travel working. So so it makes sense in the context of the movie. I think I get emotionally attached in this movie, and I feel the hit at the end when it hurts, and I think it maybe set. And not that I don't think there's enough ideas in this to make a 2-hour movie, because I totally think I think you could totally make a 2-hour movie out of this and have it be something I love. But maybe it does say something that this is 26 minutes and nails everything that it needs to. And 12 Monkeys is 2 hours 10 minutes and feels like it's got padding, because it does.
Yeah, it does. You're right. And also, it doesn't nail the atmosphere. So it is a bit more of a, okay, it feels longer because something about it feels a bit off.
Yeah, I think I would be interested in another remake of this, like a movie, but maybe, like, obviously not go back to still images, but maybe keep the black and white. But yeah, no, Jetee, it's on YouTube. You can find it quite easily if you want to watch it. It's 26 minutes. I highly recommend it. I think it's a great little movie, and it's
very unique.
I had seen 12 Monkeys before I saw that, but I'd seen it so long before it that I didn't remember it. So I never even thought of 12 Monkeys as I was watching it.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly influenced.
Yeah.
I mean, not that 12 Monkeys tries to hide it. It says right in the opening credits, based on the blank.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Yeah, it is. It's clearly it's not quite a remake of it, but it's close enough.
Yeah, I mean, like, the influence is there.
Yeah, so I love Jetee.
Even the look of the future is kind of inspired by it. So.
But 12 Monkeys, which we are going to rate because that's the movie we rate.
Yes,
we're going to do that. So, Tara, what would you give 12 Monkeys out of 10? And you can't give it 12. That is a joke.
How many monkeys do I give this movie?
Yeah, how many monkeys? That's the thing. See, if you go back to really old episodes of Screams After Midnight, for a long time, I tried to always say, how many, blank thing do you give it out of 10 based on the movie we just watched? So, like,
you pick like a random item from the film.
Yeah, so sometimes it'd be something really silly, like, how many severed heads out of 10 would you give this movie? But then sometimes it'd be how many cookies out of 10, because there was like a cookie scene or something, like. But yes, how many monkeys out of 10?
I don't hate this movie. I still kind of like it. I think the story is great. I think the execution is off. I don't hate the performances. I do think there are some miscast people in it, unfortunately. And I really don't care that much for the female lead. I mean, I think she's a fine actress, but her character is very confusing to me. But I still think it's watchable, and I still think it's worth watching. I think it's very unique, even though it is a remake. I'm going to give it a 7. 7 monkeys.
7 monkeys. I was only going to
I
give it.
don't think the downfalls of the film are enough for it to be a bad film.
Sure. I am going to get out a chainsaw and I'm going to saw a monkey in half because I'm going to give it.
Oh,
I'm going to give it 5.5 monkeys out of 10.
all right.
um, which is basically me acknowledging that there's some good ideas in there. It's me acknowledging that it's not like a terrible movie because it isn't. But I
Mm-mm.
did find it a slog to get through. I was kind of losing interest, and I do think that Brad Pitt doesn't fit the role. And I don't think he's a bad actor. I just don't think he's right for this movie. And there's some.
I think Brad Pitt was one of the only actors who knew what movie he was in.
That's fair. That's fair. And maybe the fact that we feel differently about that is just a sign that something's not right somewhere. And whether it's not that it's Brad Pitt is doing the right thing, when everyone else isn't, or that everyone else is doing the right thing and Brad Pitt is being wacky. Like either way, there's something not quite gelling in that as a
Yeah,
whole for us.
I put that on the director.
Yeah. So 5.5 for me. Um, and I'm going to turn off a lot of people here. Like I feel like there's every so often when I dislike something that a lot of people like I feel like this is going to get us some flack. I know that when eventually we do
Did
Blade
we get
Runner,
any flack for Dark City?
not as much as I thought we would actually. Not as
Hmm.
much as I thought we would because we were
Did anyone
pretty.
watch the review? Maybe that's
No. People commented, but we were pretty like lukewarm to downright negative on that. And
Yeah, that one was a disappointment. Um, just because much like 12 Monkeys, that one was the memory of the movie was a lot better.
yeah, I think what's interesting about this though is even though you were a bit more positive than me, I think we've clearly established that we have very similar tastes because typically there's very rarely times if you look at the trend of our ratings on like across the 26 episodes, 27, 28 that we're at now, of this
Hmm.
show. Like Dark City, I remember getting into that thinking, oh, like I don't think I like this movie very much, and I'm worried that Tara's going to really like it. And you ended up feeling quite similar to me, maybe
Mm,
slightly higher, but you
yeah,
were the dip was in the rating was pretty notably similar. And I feel like we actually have a very like-minded way of thinking about most of these movies. So,
right. Which
um,
is why we'll never review the Lord of the Rings trilogy, so we can keep our streak.
that ain't sci-fi anyway. It's fine.
Yeah, fantasy and sci-fi often get lumped together, but they really shouldn't.
This shouldn't be. No, this is not a fantasy show, damn it, and I will make sure it isn't. Because it's my show. There'll be no
You're
fantasy
gonna
on
have to
this.
review the Lord of the Rings for the TV show.
I know. Connor's gleeful about it. Um,
Well, I suggest if you review the films, don't review the extended edition because those are not the real movies. Those are for the fans. You got to watch the theatrical version, which I know you haven't. And I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much either if we
hey,
watched the
don't get me wrong.
extended edition first.
If for some reason I have to watch them again, you bet your ass I'm
Choose the
picking.
shorter one.
I'm picking the shorter ones. Don't you worry. If the need arises, and I don't imagine it will, but if it arises,
You're not going
sure.
to do it for the new show?
I mean, we've got a year to worry about that. Got a year. There's only just starting to shoot now in New Zealand, so we got time.
Oh, they do it in New Zealand?
Yeah,
Oh, I can't wait.
filming in Kiwi land. Um,
I hope they use the same score.
get Howard Shore in.
Yeah,
There's some. Hey, the
just
music's.
use the music. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I'm going to compliment something. The music's pretty good. I will not diss the music.
Music's great. Yeah.
Do 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 do
It's great.
do 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 do
Are you
do.
gonna cut this out and make it a bonus bit so nobody knows you know the melodies of the Lord of the Rings?
We've not went long enough on Lord of the Rings yet for me to cut this out and make it a bonus. But if you want to keep going,
All right. Well, should we review La Jetée also?
review. You mean rate?
Yeah.
We already
What's in
talked
it?
about it. Yeah. We can rate Jetee. What would you want to give Jetee out of 10?
I don't know. It's a very unique kind of film, and I don't have anything to compare it to
You've
other
never.
than 12 Monkeys.
Also, have you ever rated a short film out of 10 before?
No,
You probably haven't, yeah, because it's not like I've rated a bunch of short movies, and I watch a lot of movies.
unless you
And
count TV shows like The Twilight Zone. They're kind of short films.
they're kind of, yeah. There's an extent. There's a logic to that.
Yeah, I mean, for a short movie that is just still images and one narrator, there's a lot of There's a lot of story, there's a lot of character, there's a lot of world building, and it's actually really interesting. Um, I've got nothing else to compare it to, so I guess I'll give it a 9.
I'm also giving it a 9 out of 10. I loved it when I saw it a few years ago. It happened to be on a streaming service briefly, and I was like, oh, I'll see what this is. And I was like, huh, that's why Criterion have like there's like a double feature Criterion DVD of this and like another movie from the same director. And because obviously they didn't go on its own because it's only 26 minutes, but I'm like, yeah, this belongs in the Criterion collection. This feels like a Criterion movie.
It's very unique. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
Easy watch.
So you're glad I made you watch it then. I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Because it was kind of like a tackle. I was like, hey, Tara, do you want to do an extra thing? And she's like, an extra thing? Don't we do enough? I'm like, just trust me. Watch Jetee. It's really good. So yeah, there you go. So hopefully that ended up being a decent episode. I mean, we've actually went about an hour on this chunk. I think there was about 30 minutes of material from before this hour of recording to make this about a 90-minute review. So hopefully those first few parts edit together in a coherent way. I'll do what I can.
I apologize to audio listeners.
We learned our lesson. We won't be trying that again. So we will be back next week with another... Actually, we didn't even check to see what's coming next week. Let's do that now.
I think we already know what's coming up next week.
Do we?
It is the finale of our Terminator watch.
It isn't, is it?
Isn't Terminator Genesis next?
You may be right. Oh God, I think I willfully.
Did you block it?
Tried to block that from my mind.
Blocked it out of your memory.
Oh no, it's Terminator Genesis. Oh no.
It's time. It's time.
John Connor, it is time. Oh my. Okay, so brace yourself next week for at least 2 hours of Terminator Genesis hate.
It's all you.
You know what? I feel bad. I did.
I'm just gonna sit back this whole.
When I was editing Salvation, I was hogging the conversation a little bit. I
think Salvation was a good back and forth, but I know, yeah, you were pretty pissed off.
I think I have to let Tara drive the conversation next week. I'm going to let Tara host the show. I am going to be the co-host.
Look at me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the captain now.
I'm the captain now with a big fat grape in my mouth.
I'm the captain now. I can eat grapes whenever I want.
So yeah, get ready for Terminator Genesis next week, which actually means we're pretty close to Terminator Dark Fate. By the time you see this, because I was worried a little bit actually that Genesis, like, because it needs to go out before Dark Fate hits, because it's going to be weird if Genesis doesn't go public until after Dark Fate comes out. But I think
Dark Fate's November, right?
No, it's October.
Oh.
Yeah, right.
Better get my ticket.
What's funny actually is I actually did get a week before you, but that doesn't really matter. We'll review it when we can both see it. It's fine.
I'll see it right away.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Hey, I like the trailers, and I think watching all the films back to back is making me more excited about it. Just because I'm so hopeful that they make something good.
Because the hope is that it's the best sequel after 2, right? Because the bar's not that high.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But before we get to that, we have Genesis. We have. Oh my God! Actually, Joe, I'm just remembering I'm not going to say what it is because I'll save it for the review next week. But one of the big things you said about Terminator 3 that really upset you was the comedy, and I just remembered a scene in the middle of Genesis that's comedic that pissed me off in the theater.
I don't remember anything in Genesis. I went and saw it in the theater and then left and went, just forgot that whole 2 hours.
There is a police lineup scene in the middle of the film that is nothing but played for laughs, and I remember being physically angry in the theater. It was just how stupid it was. So I'm looking forward to your reactions next week. I'm actually morbidly kind of looking forward to this, just to, because I think the movie's going to be painful.
The world needs to know your thoughts.
I think the conversation is going to be good.
All right.
So that has been 12 Monkeys. We'll be back next week with Terminator Genesis. By all means, let us know what you think of 12 Monkeys. And I feel like you're going to be more positive than us and be mad at us for everything we've said. But you can let us know in the comments what you think of the film. You can like and you can subscribe. And you can, of course, support us by giving us a rating on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from. Give us 5 stars, help share us out, that kind of thing. Tara, I just this past couple of days, I made both Tim and Connor do the Patreon plug. Tim was a little rough, but did his best to try it. Connor just sat there and did like the most basic, mundane, like thing without any passion whatsoever. He was terrible. So prove why once again you are the best co-host, and tell them about Patreon.com.
Well, I think we already talked about Patreon in the beginning, but I will reiterate that it's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV, and as little as $1 per month gets you a bunch of bonus features, including our Leviathan review, which just went up, or has been up in this case for a couple weeks now.
A couple of weeks, yeah.
So if you want to see what aliens underwater looks like.
Yeah, that was number 5 of the bonuses. So by the time this goes up, it'll probably be quite soon. The 6th one will go up for everyone on Patreon.
Ooh, I wonder what that will be.
I wonder too. In fact, as soon as we stop recording, I think I'm going to say, "Hey Tara, what do you want to do for the bonus episode next month?" And we'll talk about it. But that has been this episode of the ACE, the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Thank you very much. Apologies once again for the weird, cut-up recording. So if there's been any inconsistencies with us repeating things that we already said, I do apologize for it. We'll be back to normal next time. It's been a pleasure. Keep watching sci-fi movies, guys, and Compure. Add salsa.
Yum, yum.